i pacchi bomba contro i rappresentanti europei stamattina.
Why I chose to kind of single you out. This isn't something that I've ever done before, actually. And honestly, I've been looking for the right kind of person to talk to about this for my own reasons, which mainly relate to, you as a presenter on your YouTube channel. You kind of walk a line that hardly anybody else out there walks, which is to say that you're talking about very tough issues, even pushing, say into conspiracy theory and stuff like that. But you haven't gone into the kind of religious, and I don't necessarily mean strictly in the Christian or Judaic or Islamic sense, but you don't seem to have been blown away by the spiritual level of it so much that you separate. Like, this is something I work with a large group of people that are, they're doing some really interesting work. They call themselves the synchromystics. And this is my problem with them. Ultimately became, and these people are brilliant, don't get me wrong, but was that they didn't really want to talk about things in terms of, say, the actual real world values of stuff. Like, in your post about your rant, as you call it, about Cecil the lion, you include a link to the article which is leveling these horrible charges at members of the British government, and you're saying this is what's really important, right? Like the fact that these terrible crimes are taking place and stuff like that. So that's kind of why I liked your stuff a lot, and I felt like I could talk to you and maybe just kind of see what happened. So it was interesting to me from that perspective. So are you recording this?
Yeah, but not necessarily for,
Oh, no.
I could edit it later, but there's someone at my door, I think.
Yeah, not to worry. Is there someone at your door?
Well, there's someone in my driveway.
Well, do you need to, if you need to go deal with it? Cool.
Okay.
Do you want to call me back, or?
You know what? I think, it's actually my mother's boyfriend dropping off well water.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was kind of expecting the delivery. Sorry, I was distracted for the last minute thinking, who's this strange person driving in the...
No, that's all right. That's all right. Do you need to go and deal with it, or?
No. He just left the water outside.
Oh, okay.
It's not going to get stolen.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well water. That's lovely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so let me kind of... so one of the points that you made in your video about Cecil, and I guess like that's kind of what I'll talk to you about right now, and just kind of see what your reaction is to all of it, is that, you know, you wondered about the, like, first of all, why the entire event was important, whether or not it's even truthful, which is highly questionable, I think. Mm-hmm. And then you wondered why it mattered, quite amusingly. And that was what actually made me, that was what connected, because I thought, well, he's like, what the fuck difference does it make whether it's a dentist or not? Why are we being told it's a dentist? And in the way I do things, I'm not a researcher. As a matter of fact, I avoid actually looking things up at all until I have these kind of explosive moments where a bunch of ideas, like I don't know if you're familiar with Buckminster Fuller at all. I'm sure you are, but
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not greatly familiar with his work, but I was impressed when I read, he had this technique, he called it bite-sized chunks, where you don't actually really try to figure anything out at all. You just take life in bite-sized chunks, and then occasionally you have these crystallizations where you're not hindered in that sense by, say, having to look at one thing in particular or another. You can look at science one day, you can look at media the next, and also in using this technique, one doesn't necessarily feel that one has any particular end in mind. The end almost presents itself, right? It's like it's almost like putting a jigsaw puzzle together with no idea of what it is, mm-hmm. And then suddenly, you can see the whole picture when you get that last piece. So anyway, so I wanted to talk to you about the whole Cecil the lion thing. And I'm not quite sure where to start, but let's just start with dentistry, all right?
All right.
I'm going to actually message you here. How do you do that? God, I'm so terrible on these freaking things. Just want to send you an image. Oh, there it is. I'm a bit older than I look, and I'm really crappy with technology. So, okay.
Well, wait, don't be so hard on yourself. Skype is the most overcomplicated and bulky program.
It's fucking ridiculous. Why do they do this? I don't know. So is this what I want to send you here? Yes, it is. Okay, I'm going to start with this. Okay, so now I don't know when you were looking at my puzzle before, did you actually look at a map of Africa?
Yes, and I've got it right on the screen for the viewer. Yep. Okay, well, I'm going to actually just bring it up here. I'm going to send you a link right now to an image. Just want you to take a look at it. Now, this what you're looking at is called a Roosh Tefilin. Okay. Now, it's important to note that the word Roosh, because this is like as you pointed out and again, this was something. It was just, I guess it was a series of things in your video that just all connected to me. Was this words that from that song that you linked to, and I went and I listened to that tune. Words being kind of holding humanity spellbound, and this is also something that as a guy who confronts the whole kind of leftist kind of social justice thing, along with your interest in the more esoteric stuff. That's part of the reason why I thought I could connect with you, is because the idea of what words mean, if they have any meaning, is something that is being it's being kind of what's the word? It's being undermined by this it's being very insidiously undermined by this kind of leftist thinking where it's what you mean when you say something, rather than the actual meaning of the words, the sentence, or the terms itself. It's somehow your emotional meaning is what really matters. And I think that words actually have a great deal more power than that. And when you use a word, its inherent meaning is implied, echoing back to its inception as a term. And we'll get into the whole thing about where words come from too. But so if you're looking at this image now I want to talk to you about the term Rosh. Depending upon the type of Hebrew you're speaking, it can also be Resh. Basically, it's R-E-S-H or R-O. But it's where we get our English word rose, for instance. The term rose, when we look at the rose means a great head, essentially, right? Because the term Rosh actually means head. And this is what we prize about the rose, is the tightness and the size of it. Its head is unique among flowers in the way that it, presents this kind of head-shaped selection of petals. And it also, of course, means the term red. Like, for instance, Rhode Island in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. Well, there's some dispute as to where it got its name, but it most likely comes from the Dutch term, the Dutch who settled the area first, calling it road. And the reason I'm mentioning road, obviously, is because of Cecil Rhodes, right? So, and I'll make that connection in a bit, but so Rhode Island just means red island, and it refers to the red color of the soil that's not that uncommon in the Atlantic, the northern coast of the Atlantic America. There's a lot of red soil, basically. So the term road actually means red, but it also means head. And so when we have Cecil Rhodes, we have a way of saying Cecil head, basically. And so now this is interesting in terms of the fact that not only are we told that Cecil the lion was executed by this dentist, but that he was also decapitated by the dentist, so that the head could be kept as a trophy, I presume. Okay, so we have this idea then of the head being a very important in terms of Rosh. And what you're looking at in this image that I sent you of this fellow wearing the Rosh Tefilin, that means it's the head Tefilin, basically. It's the Tefilin that you put on your head. And so as you can see, it's a cube, all right? It's a cube-shaped thing that sits. Now, this image happens to be a left profile of the individual. But yes. Now, if you take a look at the cube that is strapped to the individual in the picture, you'll notice it has a character on the side of it. It's kind of hard to make out, but you can see it. If you take a look at the actual cube itself, there appears to be some kind of character. Okay, yes. That character is the letter Shin, it's S-H-I-N. You could say Shin, but the way it's pronounced is Shin. And that character appears on the other side too. So if we were looking at a right-handed profile, we would also see that exact same character. Now, as I pointed out to you, the continent of Africa, and I've added a few. You're looking at an Africa image right now. There's another one that I want to send you. Now that I know how to do this, I'm just going to make it quick here. Type message here. So I'm sending another image. It's another profile of Africa. The reason I chose it is because it shows the bodies of water, Lake Victoria and whatnot, being visible in there. Now, what we're looking at here is a right profile. No, I want to tell you one more thing before we go on about the Rosh Tefilin. So that letter Shin, that's the Hebrew letter Shin that is written on the side. Now, in Hebrew, each letter is not only a letter, it is also a word. It's actually a word that means something. It would be like as if we called the letter A apple, the letter B box. If we were to do something like that, that's very much exactly the way the Hebrew alphabet works. And the letter Shin actually has a meaning. It means tooth, okay? So it actually is literally a term meaning tooth. Now, I bring that up in terms of your curiosity about dentistry. Now, let's flip to that map of Africa, and we'll take a look at the profile. Now, if you can see, and I think it's actually not that difficult to see, that this is the profile of a human skull. Right? It is the right profile of a human skull, and you'll see that Egypt is up there. Now, if you put the Tefilin on that skull, and the reason that I mentioned to you in my discussion with you earlier about the kingdom of heaven in the Bible is because it's described as this cube that descends on Jerusalem after the great Armageddon or whatever, and it's a literal cube, and it's enormous in size. It for reasons that are a little bit difficult to explain, it's about the size of the city of St. Petersburg on one side, but it's an actual cube. So, it would be about 1.5 miles high in length, in size on one side. So now if you can imagine that cube sitting on the place that is Jerusalem, you can see how it fits perfectly into the same position as the wearer of the Rosh Tefilin. Are you following me? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. So now we have the whole Shin tooth thing that we can make clear when we look, because if we recognize now that this is the profile of the human skull, you can look down and see that Zimbabwe, where Cecil the lion was killed, is exactly in the position of the tooth inside the mouth of the skull. You see what I mean?
Yeah, one of the back molars.
Well, sure. I mean, yes. The whole point of the matter is that if you were drawing a set of teeth onto this skull, the area of Zimbabwe would be covered by teeth. Of course, if you're looking at it in terms of, say, having flesh on it, you wouldn't see those teeth. But so I think that's a connection that has a great deal of meaning in terms of, well, and I'll get to more on this later. I don't know if you know this, but Zimbabwe. Do you know the meaning of the term Zimbabwe?
No.
Okay, well, have you ever heard, the Lion King movie, right?
Yes. Simba?
Well, yes, Simba. Yeah, Zimba and Simba are the same thing. And it actually means lion, okay? So the term Zimbabwe is lion land. That's literally what it means. And you can see how now we have this event taking place inside the mouth of this African continent. And I found it interesting that at the same time this is taking place, of course, Obama is in Kenya, up there near the water, the big water source of Central Africa. So that the connection to Obama is extremely important. We'll get to that in a minute. So, I'm kind of losing my train of thought here. Okay, just let me think. So, what do I want to add to this? Okay, so let's get back to the term Africa. I'm looking at that. Sorry. Just trying to. Okay, so what I wanted to point out now is that let's look at the name Cecil. Now, the matter of numerology and gematria and things like that, it pisses a lot of people off, and I understand why it does. It gets obscure, and I don't like to go into the numbers too much, okay? But the name Cecil itself has a lot of interesting qualities to just when you look at it at first glance. And I'm sure that you have been looking into, you're going to love this. You're going to love this. Okay. Because this is right up your alley regarding the Charleston affair. By the way, the name Walter, which is Walter Palmer, the guy who shot Cecil, the dentist. Walter is just a Germanic way of saying Charles. They mean the same thing. They mean king or leader or something like that. And so and I don't know if you know this, but Charleston, South Carolina, that's a double Charleston, right? Like the word Caroline and Charles, Carolus is where the term Charles comes from. All right. So if you look up, if you look into the term Carol, you will find that it is the origin of the name Charles as well. So we have then, interestingly, in the event at Charleston, now we have this double C happening. We have Charleston, Carolina, and that gives you a 33, right? Now, Charleston, South Carolina is directly on the 33rd parallel. And that 33rd parallel crosses straight through Jerusalem as well. Now, I'm not particular, as I said, I'm not really I don't like to pursue gematria or numerology in conversations with people that much because it's just, it's something more. Well, it's not so much that it's trippy. It's almost kind of unsatisfying. Like, oh, really? Like, so what does that mean? But in this case, with the name Cecil, and we have the whole 33rd parallel thing connected by way of the Shin, the tooth, the head of Africa. And the reason that the whole head is important to this story will become very important, very clear. So what you've got here is you've got this 33rd parallel, the Charleston event taking place there. You've got the double C from Charleston, Carolina. And then you have Cecil, which is Cecil, so you get CC immediately, just in a kind of what's called a lexigram. This is a term that code breakers use, by the way, and also trainers of the people who try to train apes to speak. They use the terms lexigrams as well. And a lexigram is something that code breakers understand as a way of conveying. So the double C in Cecil jumps out at you, I think. And added to this is that in the normal numerological order, the first, the middle, and the last letters of Cecil are all in the same rank, namely at the third position. Because in numerology, you only go up to the number 9, and then you repeat again. So For instance, the letters A, J, and S are all 1. It would be 1, 10, and 19th letters of the alphabet. And when you reduce those, like 1 plus 0 equals 1, 1 plus 9 equals 10, for S giving. So when you do this with the orders of the third rank, you have C, C, and L giving you 3, 3, and 3. So there's this continual repetition of threes that we're seeing and 33.3 is the actual correct understanding of the whole mystery of the 33rd parallel as it relates to the so-called age of Christ at his death, and also the 3 and some days that he spends in the tomb, etc., etc., etc. So, and all this stuff, of course, relates to these mysteries that I'm going to cap not too long from now. And then I'm just interested in hearing what you have to say about all this. So you've got now. What happens if you just add up the letters of Cecil individually? Well, guess what? They add up to 33, right? C. They add up to 3 plus 5 plus 3 plus 9 plus 12, which equals 33. So I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. I wonder if there's this whole, and then seeing the 33rd parallel and stuff like that. I found all that quite interesting. But here is what really caps this for me, because and this is what I think every other investigator on this point so far, the matter of Cecil, is missing, because everybody's looking into the name Cecil and what does it mean? Well, according to regular etymology, it relates to the term blind, right? It goes back from the Latin word to be blind, from the Latin verb for blindness, basically, which I found kind of unsatisfying. But I looked at the word and I just thought, okay, well, what if I just turn this into a lexigram? And again, like a lexigram allows you to interpret the potential meaning. Well, what is Cecil? If I said that to you, well, let's just say I had just gotten off the train from the Channel and taken the boat train over to your part of Ireland. And I was ready for a piss up, and I said, hey, look at Cecil. What would I be talking about? Because those two words, Cecil in French, mean something. They mean the sky. Okay, and more importantly, Cecil is where we get our word for ceiling, the English word for ceiling. Okay? Or guess what? Roof.
Oh.
Yes. Oh, yes. Now, here's my final big point that I kind of want to throw at you, okay? Because, and then we can just kind of talk about this. So, the events in Charleston, South Carolina, of course, are presaged by the death of these 9 firemen, right? Okay, so 9 firemen die when a roof collapses. Okay? And then, of course, we have the 9 victims of Dillon's storm roof. But what are we really being told about this if now that we've connected, and I think I have connected, the events of the killing of Cecil the Lion, and we can get into that more because the whole Lion King is there, right? The murder of Cecil is the killing of Scar, by the way. Scar was distinguished from his brother Mufasa, the good guy, whom he murders. He was distinguished from Mufasa because Mufasa had what is called there's a name for the color of orange that his mane was, but Scar had a dark mane. And Cecil the Lion was famous for his dark mane, right? That was how he was noted from standing out from the other lions. So we have now the murder of Scar, and we're going to have the rise of Simba, who is Obama, basically, which is exactly what he said. He said, people say they want to look for the record of my birth, and then jokingly at the press club speech, he cuts to a scene from The Lion King where Simba is being held out as the new king.
Tonight, for the first time, I am releasing my official birth video. Now, I warn you, no one has seen this footage in 50 years. Not even me. But let's take a look. Oh well. Back to square one. I want to make clear to the Fox News table, that was a joke. That was not my real birth video. That was a children's cartoon. Call Disney if you don't believe me. They have the original long-form version.
So this is the birth of Obama, the birth of Simba, which is why he is in Africa at the same time that Cecil is killed. Okay? So that's a key matter. Now, here's what I want to get to. So Dylan Stormroof does these crimes, which are just about as fake as can be. I think we can agree on that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I like to add, just to the whole kind of dialectic when discussing these fake news stories, is that what we know is that they're fake, right? That's the key thing. We don't actually know what really happened, if anything happened at all. It's kind of like the moon landing, for instance. You know, you get these people saying, well, the moon landing never happened. There's no way to know that. In spite of all the evidence, there's no way to know that. But what there is something to know for certain is that everything we're being told about the moon landing is a fucking lie. Everything. It's all a lie. So that we can know. That we can't know. And I think that that's an important distinction when talking about fake news. Just to anybody who, if you decide to, make a show out of this or whatever, who might hear this, or if you decide to talk about it in the future, like just this idea that what we know is that we're being lied to. And that's an important point when you're talking to a lot of people who get upset. Well, people died, man. Like, people got shot. Don't you care? Well, that might be true, but the point is we're being lied to. That's the main point. We don't know what didn't happen. We just know that we're being lied to. And I think that that's an important issue to talk about. So I want to get into this. So the roof thing happens on the 17th of July, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. Well, this is the cusp of Leo, right? Leo, the constellation Leo, astrology, okay? Oh, yeah, that's right. And of course, Simba the lion dies firmly in Leo, doesn't he? Right? We're already well into Leo now, which started on, I believe, the 23rd of July. So Simba meets his fate in Leo, and we have the presaging lead-ins of two events. I didn't actually research, because like I said, I don't research. I know about this fire, but I don't know the exact date that it took place.
The 18th of June, 2007.
Okay, so it was not in Leo then, but nevertheless. Okay, so I'm going to send you one more image that I want you to look at here. I just sent you this. Now, anybody can look this up if right. This is the constellation Leo. Okay, I want to ask you if anything about it jumps out at you.
Well, seeing as my sun sign is Leo, I've been looking at this all my life, so it just kind of looks like what it is.
Okay, well, if somebody said to you, okay, well, it's the Google game, you have to identify it. Forget it's Leo. How many points are there on there? There's 9.
Yes.
So we have the 9 people in Charleston, the 9 firemen. We have it happening in the constellation of Leo with 9 stars. Now, you may be interested to know that if you go to look anywhere at images of Leo, you won't be able to find any. Why? Because they're being blocked by Google Sky and pretty much every agency. You cannot look at Leo right now. It is blocked by it's been literally blacked out. And like serious astronomers are talking about this, like amateur, but very nevertheless serious amateur astronomers are saying, hey, why can't I see Leo in any of these, blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. And it's literally blacked out. So I thought you might find that interesting, too, in terms of maybe the metaphorical approaching of some sort of cube. towards the earth to sit on top of Jerusalem. Now, the final point I want to make here, and you might hold me to task on this, and that would be fine. That would be totally fine. But I see something when I look at that image of the constellation Leo.
I think I'm seeing it too.
Okay, what do you see?
I'm seeing that hat that the Jews wear. Maybe.
Very good. Very, very good. And it's got the little thing that it looks like it's got a beanie with a little, it could, okay, all right. But I'm going to try and steer you in the direction. And again, you can hold me to task on this. But first I want to give you, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a nudging reminder that one of the main thing that you pointed out in your Cecil rant was that, there are terrible things happening in the world right now that nobody is talking about. Nobody. Why are we talking about Cecil the Lion on TV for hours a day? Why is Jimmy Kimmel breaking into tears during his monologue, describing how? Oh, yes. Look it up.
Life Conservation Research Unit at Oxford, wildcru.org. These are the researchers who put the collar on Cecil in the first place. They track the animals and study them. If you want to do something, if you want to make this into a positive, you can. Sorry. Okay. Life Conservation Research Unit at Oxford, wildcru.org. These are the researchers who put the collar on Cecil in the first place. They track the animals and study them. If you want to do something, if you want to make this into a positive, you can. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, now why can't Jimmy Kimmel hold himself together during his monologue talking about Cecil the Lion when something else is happening in the United States of America right now that is on the level of an abomination that pushes literally the roof of common sense? Mm-hmm. And are you aware of what that current abomination in the United States of America is? It's so huge that it should be the only thing that anybody's talking about.
TPP?
TPP, what's that?
Trans-Pacific Partnership.
No. This is something that everybody knows about, and it's common, and it's something that touches everybody in a direct way. But it's interesting that you said PP because it's Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, the whole hoopla
That's right.
about the
skull of baby part, and the organization that is exposing Planned Parenthood right now, they're releasing these videos one at a time. They're starting with the light stuff, and their most recent video actually shows them literally dissecting a baby's corpse after an abortion and separating the arms and the legs and stuff.
There is a new and disturbing bombshell video rocking Planned Parenthood, the latest undercover video describing and showing the black market of selling of fetal body parts. Shannon Bream's on the story live in Washington. Shannon, what are you learning? Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Well, right up front, we have got to warn our viewers. This newest video contains graphic images of aborted fetal body parts. Some of our viewers are likely to find that disturbing. In this clip we're about to roll, provided by the Center for Medical Progress, a tissue procurement buyer is inside a clinic talking to a doctor about pricing for parts and organs from a fetus that was just over 11 weeks into a pregnancy.
That 11.6 was pretty good. There was, there was like 3 or 4 samples we could have taken out of the 11.6. So that would be, if we were doing 50 to 75 per specimen, that would be like 200, 300, right? And we'd be comfortable with that. But like, so it's like stuff like this, like we don't want to do like just a flat fee of like 200 and then, it's like.
No, and I think the per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it.
Under federal law, it is a crime, quote, for any person to knowingly acquire, receive, or otherwise transfer any human fetal tissue for valuable consideration. Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards says the organization has done nothing illegal, and it has always maintained that it does receive reimbursement for the cost of preparing and or transferring fetal tissue, but says it has never made a profit. Well, there are things that raise questions. Take a quick overview of companies that do provide fetal remains for purchase. The undercover videos show Planned Parenthood affiliated doctors quoting potential pricing at $30 to $100 per specimen. But you go online to the ordering system here for STEM Express, one of the companies that reportedly does business with Planned Parenthood affiliates. You will see pricing for a fetal liver, in some cases, at over $24,000 for a single item. The new video also contains the testimonial of a woman who says she was hired by STEM Express to work inside a Planned Parenthood clinic procuring fetal body parts. She says she wasn't told before she arrived on site what she would be doing and fainted on her very first day. In a statement, STEM Express says it, quote, prides itself on complying with all laws. Bill?
That is tough stuff. Shannon Bream, thank you. We will look for more reaction on that undoubtedly throughout the day today. Shannon Bream in Washington.
Okay, so this is the big cover-up right now. Like, you can see what I mean, right? Like how, like say in terms of the pedophilia ring scandal that is really prominently interesting in the UK right now. This is what they should be talking about on the news all the time, but they're not. They're talking about Cecil the lion. And what are they talking about over here? They're talking about harvesting baby parts for stem cells so that rich people can live forever, which, you know, is all a transhumanist thing. Well, what I see when I look at Leo is a coat hanger.
Okay.
Right, which is the traditional instrument of a birth, of an abortion.
Oh my God.
Right? So, now, that may seem like a bit much, and I think it is, quite frankly, but to me it's not, because what we're talking about here is, because I have a, and this is where I'm going to let you kind of run with this. I'm just curious to see what you got to say on the matter, and maybe talk about some other interesting details. But, I have worked a long time to uncover what I believe is kind of a program, basically, right? And I mean that in the widest possible sense of the word, because I don't actually know where this program originates in the sense of like a place or a locus or even a time. But I have noticed, particularly because I am a serious media junkie, right? I've noticed the insinuation of a certain type of what I'm going to call self-abortion program. And I would never recommend reading my work to anybody. I only point it out because there might be a matter of interest, but I have outlined the workings of this program in one article at my blog, which is called Suicide Switch, all right? And it's about a film called Phantom of the Paradise, which is a cult film over here, and it's well, in my opinion, it's a cinematic masterpiece, but that's beyond. So if you want to look at how, and what I secretly, and among friends, what I call this code is the Herod code, okay? Now, I don't know if you know, but like twice in the history of Egypt and then later in the history of so-called Israel, we have a Herod, a man named Herod, deciding that he needs to kill all of the firstborn males, right? Yep. Because apparently one of them is going to come and overthrow him, right? Well, just by extrapolating and trying to normalize, so that happens once in the Old Testament, and then later a younger Herod does the same thing, trying to kill off all of the children who might potentially be the coming Messiah, right? So what if what if we had a programmatic version of the Herod program? Like, in other words, these self-abortion programs, essentially. What if it was possible to get, and I don't mean this in the sense of trying to stop even an individual who's going to rise like Neo from the Matrix and change everything. I'm talking about trouble source individuals, okay? Mm-hmm. Like people who are going to rock the boat. What if there was a program that could potentially, through media and through subtle and repeated insinuations over literally decades of programmed media to insinuate these self-aborting programs. And this is what I'm thinking this is about, okay? Everything gets turned on its head in terms of allegory by Disney, right? If you look at the Disney oeuvre, what you do is you just flip it. You flip it around. You flip the paradigm so that the good guys are actually the bad guys and vice versa. And the stories actually make a lot more sense. They actually make a lot more sense. And this idea of Scar, of course, is marked, right? He has the mark of Cain. And this is the mark that is said to be had only by the Son of Man, who is Christ, right? And, of course, David is the seed of Christ. David is, of course, called the Lion of Judah, right? Mm-hmm. So what I'm seeing here fundamentally is, with this Cecil thing, is that this is the murder, this is the openly overt abortion essentially, of some kind of what we would call, I guess, egalitarian or free humanity or anything like that. And that now the Obama administration is going to roll in and basically take over the world, literally. Now, that might make you sound like a madman, but Obama has actually said himself, he's actually said, well, you know, if I was president a third time, I would be a good president. So he's already insinuating that there's not going to be another president after.
I have to also say that Africa's democratic progress is also at risk when leaders refuse to step aside when their terms end. Now, let me be honest with you. I do not understand this. I am in my second term. It has been an extraordinary privilege for me to serve as the President of the United States. I cannot imagine a greater honor or a more interesting job. I love my work. But under our Constitution, I cannot run again. I can't run again. I actually think I'm a pretty good president. I think if I ran, I could win. But I can't. So there's a lot that I'd like to do to keep America moving, but the law is the law. And
essentially, jokingly. And the other thing I wanted to send you, by the way, just I wanted to send you this image of a, I don't know if you know this, but prior to Mickey Mouse, there was a character, the pre-Mickey Mouse character created by Disney, by Walt Disney, was called Oswald the Rabbit.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Oswald is...
Very catchy. Can see why he didn't take off.
Well, Oswald the Rabbit is a king killer, right? If you take a look at that image that I just sent you.
Mm-hmm.
So, in other words, now if you can extrapolate the whole concept of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the king kill paradigm. As a reader of Robert Anton Wilson, I would think you might have come across it.
King for a day.
Not exactly.
Bough.
The king kill paradigm actually relates to alchemy.
Okay.
And let me give you an example of this. Stanley Kubrick, who I would be willing to talk about, but I'm so sick of it now because people just don't get it. The guy was just plain evil, and that's all there's to it. He loved to play tricks on his audiences. Now, in the movie The Shining, let me make something clear to you. If I said to you, somewhere across the room is a beautiful diamond, right? Mm-hmm. You're not touching it, you can just see it. What attributes would you say that it had?
Holographic?
No. Very simply. You're just an ordinary kid. What's that diamond? Okay. Wow. It is what?
Very precious.
Well, okay, no. It's shiny. It's shiny.
Shiny, okay.
That's the actual quality of a diamond. Is the very nature of a diamond is that the purer and better a diamond it is, the more light it catches. And the way diamond dealers actually, which kind of gets into the Hebraic connection too, the way they talk about diamonds is that a truly perfect diamond would catch so much light that all you would see was light. And you can actually see this if you ever get a chance to see somebody in really, really fine diamonds. They shine so much that sometimes they can literally black out the person's face. Now, when we were talking about these details earlier, I was thinking about, like for instance, the word shine and sheen, right? The Hebrew word sheen or shine seem to have the same origin. And by the way, sheen does not only mean tooth; it's a word that also means flame or a flickering flame or something that shines, basically. So we have all these connections to tooth. Yeah. So I mean, I've got a lot of other ideas that I haven't touched on, but that's just kind of. So I guess what I would want to say then is the way all this seems to be connected to me, in terms of every single detail relating to Like, by the way, I don't know if you've ever heard. Have you ever heard of the term "shine" as a con? Like, so don't shine me.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah, of course. And of course, shine is also a derogatory term for an African person, right? So you've heard that too. Kubrick plays with that massively. This is why in The Shining, which The Shining actually has many codes related to the details that I'm talking to you about now. And I go over some of them in pretty fantastic detail in the article that I did send you. But Kubrick changes the character of Dick Halloran from an Irishman, interestingly enough. The name Dick Halloran couldn't be much more Irish, honestly. Into a black man, right? Turns him into a shine. And the next time you're looking at The Shining, if you ever do such things, I can't imagine why anybody would, but if you're watching the film, if you ever want to talk about Kubrick, I could probably change your world in a lot of different ways. But I know I could, but that's beside the point. Nobody's got the time for this shit, right? So, but the very first time that we see Halloran introduced in the movie The Shining, right? The redheaded manager, Stuart Ullman, is saying, and the character of Halloran has not been introduced yet. So we see the actor Scatman Crothers, and he's walking into the scene. And the words that they're talking about liquor at the bar. And Stuart Ullman is explaining to Jack why it is that there isn't any liquor kept during the winter. And he goes, well, we have to get all of the booze off of the premises. Right? Right. So in other words, no blacks allowed. Right. No booze. We got to get rid of the booze. And this is said just exactly of them. Now, you might think that's a stretch. However, I don't know if you ever watched the TV show Downton Abbey or not. But in the final season, the character, interestingly enough, Lady Rose, has a brief affaire de coeur with a black jazz musician. And, good old Lord Grantham of Downton Abbey decides that he's going to relax his standards a little bit and let this jazz musician come and play a concert for the community over which he, sees. And so the black jazz musician comes. Now, in the basement, the downstairs people are listening. They're not invited upstairs to hear the jazz concert. And the character named Mrs. Patmore, she's the cook. Oh, son of a bitch, she's the cook. Just fucking killed me. And she happens to be redheaded, this little lady named Resh. What she says, she's listening to the music as it echoes down the staircase. And she goes, well, I don't think I understand it, but it sure makes me want to jig about. So she's literally said jigaboo in there, right?
Okay.
Which is yet another slur for the African American. And just while we're on the subject of the African American question, I want to thank you for introducing me to Patrice O'Neill.
Oh yes, what a legend!
Because I consider myself to be a serious connoisseur of stand-up comedy, and his final set before his death is an absolute masterpiece. It's the kind of thing like that I could go to like music and just watch the whole fucking thing from beginning to end over and over again. I've seen it several times since, and amazingly I'd never heard of him before. But anyway, I wanted to point that out. So anyway, so that's kind of my spiel right now. There's some more details, but that kind of lead into all this. But you get what I'm after here.
Yeah, I see what you're tying together, and there's a lot in there.
Oh yeah,
there's a lot in there. I don't want to detract from the main thread, but
no, please detract.
When it comes to the whole hoopla about aborted fetuses,
yes, it goes
a little deeper than the rich people feeding off of the dead. It's actually us. This is a Soil and Green situation.
Yes. No, I agree. Yeah, I agree completely. Yeah.
It goes into skin cream. It goes into Pepsi. We're talking about the cells of these fetuses are actually used to...
fucking unbelievable. To cancer. Yeah, so again, you're really cementing. You're not... That wasn't hardly a detraction or diversion at all. Because in terms of the whole dental thing, right? Like we have the Shin, and The Shining, and cannibalism is a theme that is continually introduced into the movie The Shining over and over again, right? And this idea that, this is what we do. And I wanted to add something of interest to that. No, that's a little bit obscure. We'll maybe leave that if we ever speak again. But yeah, so that's, I agree with the whole Soylent Green thing. I wanted to finish my point about Kubrick, about his trickiness. So in the terms of this, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, right? It's seen over and over again printed on these papers. Well, for every foreign film, he actually had a foreign phrase printed out. And the phrase from Italian, translated in English, that appears in the Italian version of The Shining is, "The sun holds the morning in its mouth," basically. And this is an alchemical thing that's obviously going on here, right? Like, if you want to go all the way, this is some kind of sick satanic experiment that either we are all unwittingly a part of. I often wonder sometimes if there is some kind of consent form that several thousand millennia or lifetimes ago that each of us might have signed, like as in, the Church of Scientology, where we've given ourselves for 1 billion years, but, 500 million years later, we can't remember we signed the contract. Because I often wonder, what role do each of us, like you, me, I don't drink Pepsi or use skin cream, and I'm not into, but, and I'm aware, conscious of the things that I eat in terms of, but how does one extract oneself from that to a point where one feels one's not a part of it? Or, on the other hand, how does one devise a way to understand what role one plays in this kind of thing? It's just all, it's hard on the brain.
It is. I'd like to refer to an occult principle that has been repeated to me by people like Michael Tsarian, if you're aware of that fella.
I'm very aware of him. I enjoy his work a great deal.
When you have a ritual, and this is what's going on, these are rituals as far as I'm concerned.
Amen. Okay, so we completely agree with each other. Yeah.
Good. We're on the same track. Well, the actual sacrifice or anyone involved in the ritual has to be informed in some manner that this is what's going on right now. You're part of this thing that's going on. Yeah,
the so-called revelation of the doctrine, right? They have to tell you in some way. But
it can be any old way.
Yeah. Isn't that kind of weird, though? I mean, because the way in which we're being told is fundamentally in code, right? Mm-hmm. And, for instance, take the Bible, right? As an example of this, the Bible as a work of literature. Looking at this thing, this is something that annoys me a lot, that I hear the more ordinary or the more normalized Christian saying, because, these people are presumably quite intelligent, right? Mm-hmm. And some of them, in terms of Bible scholarship, are able to really dig deeply. But one of the things is so you have this text, and supposedly it has some meaning, right? But the meaning becomes impenetrable at a certain point. And yet there is this insinuation by the book itself that you have to read it. This is kind of almost how I feel about these occult rituals. It's it's saying to you, you have to pay attention to this, but you can't really do anything about it. Do you follow me? Mm-hmm. And that kind of pisses me off, quite frankly. It makes me feel what in terms of what you're expressing, the model of how we must be told and if there's this oligarchical class of evil ritualists who are carrying out these bizarre experiments on the human race, that we have to know about it somehow, yet we're not able to just say, okay, I wish to opt out and live in some place or some reality where these experiments or these rituals do not take place. I mean, it's almost yes, we're being told about them, but they also almost seem embedded into nature at some level, unless we're living in some kind of, and then that extrapolates what a lot of people are we living in some sort of virtual reality or some kind of program matrix, right? That leads into those questions, and then it's all the Philip K. Dick metaphysical stuff.
Your phallus.
Well, I wouldn't. It's complicated, and it actually you have like this is the thing, right? I was reading about Dick online in the early 2000s, 2001 to be precise, and I came across this thing where he's saying, this note handwritten in the margins of a book that is now published, and of course the marginal writings aren't in the book now. And this was an online archive put up by Phil K. Dick's family. I'm not sure if it's still there, but so somebody's saying, so you're saying that these Jewish alchemists have been controlling everything in this weird time loop? That really set me off thinking, and I began to study, in terms of Ireland, by the way. Have you ever seen and that whole Kubrick thing? The ritual in question the largest abstract way is about fire on water. You understand that, right? Merging fire and water?
No.
You don't? Okay. Do you read much about Crowley or, I'm sure you do. Yeah. There's a certain Irishman I'm thinking of right now, William Butler Yeats, obviously. And this is the desired goal here. And this is represented as a sexual act. It's oral sex, actually, by Crowley in his book called Book of Lies. Also cannibalistic, right? Like Crowley actually suggests that the heavenly way for human beings to nourish themselves is literally to consume the semen and period, the menstrual discharge, right? He says, love little children, love one another, basically. So this idea that this is the path to immortality is this. William Butler Yeats was one of the founders of the Golden Dawn. I'm pretty sure you know that. Yep. And of course, so it's interesting to note that just in terms of understanding these things and how they all relate to Valis and everything like that, because they do. Like obviously, if it's Jewish alchemists, well, then they're using some kind of Jewish magic. Was my assessment. And I became interested in just Hebrew mysticism and stuff like that, just kind of reading about it. And I came across the Golden Dawn. I just sent you the copy of this book. This is what they want, right? The fire and the water coming together as one. And I don't know if you know this, but on the same day that Cecil the lion was killed, this guy, this world famous surfer, set himself on fire and then surfed this gnarly wave. Yeah. No, check it out. Surfer sets himself on fire. You can find the clip, and he actually goes tubular while on fire, right? So this is what this is the bringing together of water and fire. Fire coming down from above, water rising up to meet it to create this so-called new world. There's a lot of occult stuff in here, but anyway, yeah. It's like I wouldn't say I've given you the full Monty, but. You kind of get the idea of just why I found your statements interesting. We have the whole 33rd parallel thing, Charleston. We have the Resh Tefilin. We have the dentistry. The whole, and then there's so much more to this. Are you following at all the kind of interest in the so-called blood moon tetrad that supposedly?
Because of its Christian insinuations, I just kind of
right. Yeah, no. I get that. Like, see, that's not very. I understand that, but it's not very Aristotelian of you, because as Aristotle said, it is no. I say this to you as a friend. As Aristotle pointed out, the sign of a penetrating intellect is the ability to entertain and examine things without necessarily believing them. And this whole blood moon thing has been related by many interesting researchers to the events around Leo and Virgo. Well, in this whole version, right, Leo is the constellation next to Virgo as well. So it becomes a whole, and the birth, that whole kind of birth thing and then the abortion thing fitting into all that. I thought you might find that interesting too. But anyway, yeah, you kind of, that's my wad, as they say.
Again, there's a lot tying in here, and I find that your main thesis of a suicide switch is, it's very. It makes a lot of sense because the way I've been coming at it is the individual in a conceptual sense is being murdered. What is it? A month or a week? I'm not sure, but very close before the Charleston shooting, we had Rachel Dolezal, who came out, was exposed for pretending to be black, and then you have Bruce Jenner becoming Caitlyn Jenner.
Yes,
There's this destruction of individuality, and the main message coming across, oh look, this white kid killed a bunch of black people because he thought he was white and he thought they were black, and race is just a structure in the mind. We are being convinced to destroy everything that differentiates us.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, I'm a chronic, obviously, so excuse me. This is why I love listening to you, man. I love when you start to laugh. You are a very funny laugher. But you've nailed it. You've absolutely nailed it. And this is why I've become so frustrated. And this is kind of why I chose to reach out to you. I mean, I was actually becoming, I guess, what you would call within certain circles famous. I was doing an audio commentary, for instance, to the movie 237 and things like that. And I was, getting talked about in Spanish universities, and a lot of people were interested in my work, particularly people who were researchers of Kubrick, because I've made some discoveries about Kubrick that are unique. As a matter of fact, and I'm just saying this, between friends. Are you familiar with Jay Wiedner?
Oh yeah. Okay,
well, here's the thing. You'll notice if you scan all of Jay Wiedner's work, and the guy's a genius. And he deserves every single accolade he gets. But he is a businessman. And if you scan his work, you will notice a decided change. It's almost as if overnight he starts talking about Kubrick in a very, very different way. He begins by talking about him as this great magician who's showing us the truth about our souls and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden he starts talking about mob connections and how Kubrick was in on 9/11. Okay? Now, that all comes from me. I am the originator of that theory, and I gave it to Jay Wiedner. And I've got the emails to prove it. And, that whole thing about the Kubrick 911 thing originates with my theories about Kubrick. I was studying the movie Eyes Wide Shut and trying to make sense of it, basically, because I just thought it was the most ridiculous fucking thing I'd ever seen. And I couldn't even understand why it got made or what would give it any kind of, it's so cold, it's so remote, it's hard to be emotionally involved in it at all.
Yeah.
And then after watching the film, I made let's just say I leapt to a conclusion that made sense to me. And I all of a sudden understood why this film makes perfect sense. It's because of when it's happening in time. It takes place in New York at the Christmas after 9/11. And when you understand that about the film, everything about it starts to make perfect sense, particularly the behavior of its central character, who suddenly feels the need to go to the limit to try and understand what's going on in his world. And there's all sorts of clues in the film that it takes place after 9/11. And if you, I could send you some links. I don't know if you're a reader or not, because obviously this stuff is... I'll send you a few links. For instance... I'll send you my main articles on Kubrick, and I'll send you a link to Suicide Switch as well. And by the way, just so you know, when I do this, I'm not that kind of guy who's going to harp on you. Did you read my thing? I'll never do that. I'll never bother you about it again. And if you ever do, bring it up, we could talk about it. But yeah, so that for me, that was kind of like a big moment. Was when Wiedner started running with my stuff without because if I ever get an idea from somebody else, I always say, I got this idea specifically from this person, and here's how I developed it. But he never did that. It kind of
a kind thing to do.
Yeah, I didn't want him to give me any money or cost. I never would have done that. But considering how important it's become to his work, that kind of would have been nice. And I started to become disillusioned with all these people who were talking about these things and then there's a guy like you who I just come across, and interestingly enough, I came across you because you were talking about like the MGTOW thing.
Oh.
Yeah, that was how it was. Just it was a video that you were ranting about the whole MGTOW thing. I basically agree with you on that one too. That actually fits the whole paradigm of how we're being broken down. Quite frankly, fits the model.
Further destruction of the family.
Man,
feminism 2.0.
Yeah, but it's not even destruction of the family. It's actually the destruction of the human body, right? Because this is what, like, whether or not one achieves. I have a lot of theories about the body. So, the whole idea is that the body is there to do things. It actually, so if you say you're a man going your own way, you're literally saying, well, my physical existence is divided. You're splitting yourself in two, basically, from the natural order of what your body desires, whether you like it or not, right? Like, I'm not particularly fond of what a complicated world the psychosexual world is. It's just a fucking nightmare. Let's face it. But nevertheless, it's why we're here. So we agree on all that, and I guess that's just to kind of sum up my whole thing of why I contacted you. That it was the fact that you were talking about like putting those things side by side. I never hear anybody do this, and it pisses me off so much. Is that they'll talk about all these kind of concurrences and sort of these obscure, these occult, esoteric proofs, which I find very exciting to do. And I find them supportive to me of just how deep the matters that we're discussing go, right? They become a philosophy. They become a matter, and it's incredibly exciting. And just in terms of being a person looking at this stuff, life is rarely ever boring, essentially, because it's like all these magical, and I don't like to call them magical in the sense of the way kids today talk about magic. It's like, oh, magic, it's lovely. It's, magical is like, it's this weird power that seems to be exerting itself in reality. It's very exciting to look at. But at the same time, and this is why I couldn't hang out with these folks anymore who I really liked and who were brilliant, is because every time I tried to bring these things up, these matters of how this actually relates to us as human beings, they actually got really touchy, right? So that's just your opinion, man. And it's like, yeah, it's sure, what I'm saying is an opinion, but it's an important opinion, and nobody seems to want to talk about it, We just talk about these details, and isn't that interesting? And then as soon as the issue gets to the point where what does this mean to us as people, it's like, well, we're good. And this is what the main part of the group that I was involved with actually called this a Stargate. And they believe that we're all going to leap to this beautiful new world. And it's all going to be Hakuna Matata and stuff like that. And that's how they all kind of see the meaning of all these things coming together. So for me, it's just nice to kind of reach out to somewhat of a kindred spirit.
That's why I opened my mouth to begin with, is to find that connection. Because you're right, there is this kind of block. You're either super political or super metaphysical, and never shall the two meet. Yes,
it is a problem. But to me, it's like metaphysics has been used to completely confound really looking at anything from the bottom up. Having a bottom up attitude. You don't build a house from the top down, obviously. Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. But there you go.
I keep having a fucking clear in my throat. Oh, bad day. Okay. We need to solidify this somehow.
All right. All right.
Or perhaps bring in another thread. You mentioned the 33rd parallel.
Yes.
And I've done a lot of research a few years ago, and I just kind of left it in an article of all these weird things that happen on parallel, particularly murders. Like Saddam Hussein was murdered on the 33rd parallel.
Yes.
And then you have, you know how the whole stereotype of, oh yeah, they only do capital punishment in the South, you know, when talking about America. But that's just because it's on the 33rd parallel.
Yes.
Is it significant that the top of this head of Africa is the 33rd parallel?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you why. Because, all right, you're talking about, let's say we say that, because if you look at the sort of conspiracy chatter, they call it the death row parallel, right? For instance, countries across worldwide, whether you see the Earth as a globe or whether you see it as a zetetic plate, along the 33rd parallel are known for their use of a death penalty is very strong, and almost everywhere else in the world it's actually not used at all, right? So there's that, and then you talk about how, historically speaking, it's fascinating. Just how many assassinations, such as the one in Dallas, for instance, take place on the 33rd parallel. And of course, what we're talking about here is a head coming off. This is the key. This can take place in two ways, by the way. Like it can be hanging, or it can be decapitation, or a bullet to the head, or that sort of thing. But this idea of the head coming in alchemy, this is the final process before the new child is born. Because the process of alchemy, it's a 7-step process, and the last process is called the drowning of the king. And this drowning relates to decapitation because essentially it's about oxygen being cut off to the brain. That's the main thing about the drowning, okay? And the term they use for this is a caput mortem. And it actually looks like a smiley face, basically. And it's also called a deadhead. That's what caput mortem is Latin for deadhead. And this last, so you have Cecil, right? Going back to Cecil, 33, adding up to 33, the blah, 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 blah. So now, if you take a look, let's say then, so what we're saying is that life can be cut off underneath or at the 33rd parallel, okay? So, and we see this in terms of being directly across the top of the head of a worshiping Jew. And what this, now, I don't know if you know this or not, and this is kind of gross, but traditionally, the moil who performs the circumcision, after performing the actual cutting, he cauterizes the penile wound by actually sucking on it with his teeth. He bites it, right, and then sucks, creating kind of a hickey that stops the bleeding, okay? This is a fact, okay? And, like, going back to Maimonides, many Jewish scholars are saying, like, why do we do this weird fucking thing, right? It's kind of sick. But it is a fact that the traditional circumcision was, the final act was literally the biting of, with the teeth, with the sheen. And again, we see that sheen on the top of the head of Africa in terms of what we've discussed before. So if we can now extrapolate that into what you mentioned about how this is an area where a lot of these deaths happen, particularly assassinations, hangings, people getting shot in the head, particularly famous people. You could put Sadat into that same group. What we can see happening is that there is it's almost as if you want to take it to the weirdest kind of cosmic level, it's like a circumcision zone, right? It's like this part we throw away. And then, so if that which attempts to rise through or pass through that 33rd zone is then subject to be cut off, essentially, right? And in the caput mortem, the final sequence of alchemy, which leads to the birth of the newborn king, who is fundamentally like, many people, when they're talking about Saturn, which is Saturn fundamentally is a principle, you could say or Satan, that ties time together at its beginning and at its end. And of course, at the end of time, Saturn is this old man. This is the king that has to be killed, and he is suffocated, basically. And then he's suffocated, drowned, and then decapitated, cut up into pieces. Very much, interestingly, like the bodies of these babies that we are being told are how they're used after they're aborted. Their arms, their torso, their legs, and their head are separated into those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different groups. So this is the same process as it undergoes in this final stage of alchemy, which leads then to Saturn being reborn as this newborn golden child of the sun, right? But it's always Saturn because it ties, and then he ages again, and the so-called golden age depletes. It becomes through time, and at the end of it, supposedly we're at the end of the age of Pisces right now. So at the end of the 2,000-year age, the king has to be resurrected as a new child so that the whole thing can happen over again. And from what we're looking at in terms of transhumanism, I mean, obviously, when we're talking about, here's an interesting point that people, the whole transgender thing, right?
Yeah.
And how, like, essentially what somebody like Bruce Gender, that's like, it's almost unavoidable, is undergoing, if the whole thing isn't a scam and he's actually going to, go all the way with this, as some have. So he's going to basically have his entire dick cut off, right? And this is the rebirth. One of the things that Jenner said was, I'm the new normal. So the new normal is the new birth, and this new birth is this new creature.
Isn't it great that maybe someday you'll be normal? Just blend into society.
You are normal.
Put it this way, I'm the new normal.
Which is, and by the way, this relates to the Egyptian mythology of Isis and Osiris, right? Because Osiris was cut up into many pieces and then his penis was lost. And this also relates to the whole Freudian concept of feminine penis envy, which, by the way, Freud is dead right, of course. I mean, if you look at the feminist movement at all, you can see that it's penis envy, right? And the problem with penis envy for women is, like, they don't have penises, right? They can't get them. And they can't do with a penis what a man can do, which, by the way, is ultimately sums up to one thing: being able to wash it off after you screw somebody. Right? What? Like, the male can wash the female off of himself. Not only symbolically, but he can actually see himself doing it, right? He can clear himself because he has his, have you seen the movie Dune or read the book Dune?
Yeah, I've seen.
Okay, well, there's a line in the film that explains this perfectly. And this is why feminism and the need for transgenderism is about the female attempting to usurp the natural male position, which is ultimately what it's about. And this relates back to the myth of Isis, who, after her brother and lover is killed, she wants to get his penis, and she can't do it, so then she literally makes one out of gold, which she has sex with herself, like a dildo. Now I don't know if you know the term strap-on, right?
Yep.
Well, read it backwards for me.
I was never good at this.
It's not that hard, because it's just two words. No. Read it as 2 words. 2 words. So strap is one word, yep. On is another. So on backwards. And
no parts?
Yeah, no parts, right? The lady doesn't have the parts, so she has to strap on. Right, no parts equals strap on. So this is kind of what's taking place here. It's almost like a new version of reality is being superimposed, strapped on to the other one. So, and then all this relates back into the whole 33rd thing, and I think ritual circumcision by way of the teeth being the way that the bleeding is cut off, and thus saying also, in a way, that the human life stops at the top of the head, right? This is and this relates in a sense to traditionalism and the problems with mysticism, right? Is that and this is why the Jews, in their traditional way, wear, same with the Islamists, wear the skull cap, It's because that's where their world ends, essentially, right? They don't go above that, and everything underneath that must die, right? And this, of course, all fits into the whole continuation of, be fruitful and multiply that goes into the inevitable development of the family structure and our society and agriculture and the whole fucking shebang. So, it's just, I guess I hope that kind of answers what you're kind of getting at with the whole 33rd degree thing. And by the way, interestingly enough, you noticed how the whole Cecil thing and 33, lion, 9, right, all relating to it, and the Cecil being the ceiling or the roof. Well, if you look at the map of the United States, you'll find that if you kind of just look at it in terms of Africa, the mouth of Africa, which is Mozambique, leading into the inner mouth of Zimbabwe, well, that's, coastally speaking, that's exactly where Charleston is on the 33rd parallel, right? Charleston, it's right there on what would be if... Now, I'll throw this at you, by the way, just so you know how to properly see the country of the United States of America. And obviously, you're free to completely dismiss this. But, okay, and it is very, very helpful to look at older maps of Washington, D.C. I'm going to see if I can find one while we're talking. Image map of Washington.
Are you talking about the encoded city designs over Washington?
No. I'm not going to get into that. No. I'm looking for antique maps because this is a shape. The continental United States of the America, not including Alaska, obviously. Mm-hmm. These are really good. This one's perfect. So I'm just going to send you this link right now. It is so fucking obvious. It's unbelievable. Oh, it's creepy, really. But nevertheless, I mean, and this may be a kind of a harbinger of things to come. I don't know. Or it could be a perpetual thing. And this relates to the whole kind of sacrifice of the human being and Soylent Green and all that stuff. Did I get that? No, that wasn't what I wanted to send.
That was the search page.
Yeah. Well, okay, I'll just open it.
No, wait, I think I've got the image you wanted. It was highlighted.
Yeah. Okay, so there's this... you can see there. So if you look at just the outline of the city, that's the city of Washington, D.C. Do you notice anything interesting about it?
Give me a second to magnify it.
So you should be looking at an antique map of Washington. Yeah.
Well, you've put my mind onto the Freudian things, so I just see genitalia everywhere.
Here's the thing. If I ask a question like this, yeah, the genitalia thing is obvious. But if I ask a question like this to anybody when I do, I'm actually looking for the most obvious answer here, okay? Like, I'm not trying to trick you and go, oh, no, you're wrong. I'm not trying to do that because anything you say is going to be right. Look at the map. Look at the outline of the city of Washington, D.C. Just look at the outline of it. And that if you want, just rotate it counterclockwise about 20 degrees. It's the outline of the continental United States of America. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. You could overlay that over top of the United States of America, and it would fit. So you can see Florida coming out there on that, down there by the Potomac. By the way, Potomac River is hilarious, right? That word, Potomac River, because Potomac means river, right? So it's the river. That's where we
doubles going on.
Yeah. But anyway, so you can see that it's the shape of the continental United States of America. But now here's the thing that you probably wouldn't necessarily guess. What it really is it is a completely slaughtered side of beef.
Yes.
Right?
I see that too.
Yeah. So now the reason that that's important is because I don't know if you've ever heard one of the things in lexigram coding is repetitious phrases. So, for instance, when you say USA, you know how they go USA, right? When they chant that. Well, if you say that over and over again, really what you're saying is Zeus. So you're saying Zeus over and over again, right? I'd love to tell you my color theory sometime. That'll blow your fucking mind. But we talk about that some other time. But so Zeus, of course, as I mentioned in my articles about the Dark Knight, right? The Pergamon of Zeus, the altar of Zeus, is where both JFK and Obama. It is something that is imitated at Dealey Plaza. And this idea of Zeus being the king, right? King of the gods. Zeus is the front for Saturn, right? Zeus is the body of Saturn. Saturn being the mind of Zeus might be another way of putting it. But the interesting thing about Zeus is that he frequently turns into a bull, right? And the entire, in the book of Revelation, it talks about the scarlet woman riding the beast. Right, and she has her 7 heads and all that other stuff. Or the beast has 7 horns, or whatever. Well, this bull, it's a bull that she's riding. It's called Europa, right? And this is it's an ancient ritual where women would leap over a beast. It was a fertility. They would leap over a bull with its horns, the bull representing Zeus. And so this is all how, and of course, something that is up your alley in terms of the formation of the European Union, right? Which is very, and in a couple of my YouTube videos, which again I wouldn't bother watching, but I tried. I started out talking about this problem of what I call Mystery Babylon, because, and this is something that I would encourage you, and I'm just saying encourage, whatever, right? Like, I wouldn't be disappointed one way or another, whatever you choose to do. But you talk about stuff regarding the Bible, and how you don't want to touch it because like all these Christians, and I'm totally with you on that. I get it. But here's the thing: what is absolutely clear, if you look, and it doesn't take too much hard looking in these days of the internet, which is like a psychic medium in and of itself. Mm-hmm. It is clear that there is a global, full-scale biblical simulation of the Book of Revelations taking place right now, and so to me, this is an important value, right? Is that it's overt to the level to which it's being done. Right, Lady Gaga being the overt whore of Babylon and whatnot. Gaga literally being the language of Babylon, right? Ba 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 la la la. And what happened when they brought the tower down and all that other stuff? How people couldn't understand each other anymore. It was all just Gaga ba ba. So to me, those things and the way this is something that I've also found hard to reconcile. Is like, what do you do when there's a full scale biblical simulation going on? Full scale, like global simulation of the like. At what point is the simulation different than the reality? So that's a problem for me that I kind of want to just,
It's a reoccurring problem. We have these things being thrown at us, and it really is hard to tell what's being thrown out there and what's just happening.
Yeah. The Sandra Bland thing is interesting, in that respect, because it's obvious that this woman was committed suicide. And this works perfectly for this system because, they love it when people do things on their own, right? It saves them the trouble of having to create the media frenzy themselves. And it also gives them the backup they need for their system to criticize the conspiracy-minded people, right? Anyway, so yeah. I don't know what else might be interesting to you, but as the evening...
I'm still busy digesting quite a lot of what you've put on my table there. But, I'm wondering still, where does the connection with Cecil Rhodes come in with the lion Cecil? And you brought up the phonetic road head.
Yes, yeah.
Why was Cecil Rhodes called Cecil Head?
Well, why was he called that? Well, that's not that. If you're looking at the anatomy or the traditional acceptance of the understanding of Rhodes, it means something else. I'm relating it by way of a lexigram to the term rose and Rosh, and the color red and the term head as well. But why would he be called? Well, I mean, if you ask me, because diamonds shine, and because shining is sheening, and because sheen is the letter they wear on their head, representing the shining flame, the shining, meaning both tooth, right? And, you know, the fact that I wrote a follow-up to my article on the Dark Knight shooting, which just kind of touched briefly on a Little Wayne video. And this idea of diamond teeth, for instance, right? So you have coming out of predominantly, well, not predominantly, the African American community, right? Nobody else in the world has diamond teeth except for the African Americans, and maybe a few of the anybody else who does it is copying them. Let's put it that way. And so so you have the shine, the sheening, the diamonds, the diamond on the head. Oh, by the way, I wanted to. What I did was, I did just kind of a scan. You know, by the way, if you type the mouth of a lion into Google, you'd think that there'd be people maybe, you know, somewhere on the top page or the top 10 pages or the top 50 pages, somebody talking about the actual mouths of actual lions. But instead it's not. It's all biblical. All biblical on Google. And there is only one phrase in the Bible that has both mouth and lion in it. And that comes from Deuteronomy, and it refers to, now this is what's interesting to me, okay? It refers to the tribe of Gad. That's G-A-D. And the tribe of Gad is actually, of all the original 12 tribes of Israel, is the only tribe that is apocryphal, right? They were wanderers. They were these nomadic people who were recognized as and of course the myths that the lost tribe of Israel is somewhere in the heart of Africa is a continual discussion, right? Now, if you were to go look, and I won't send you a link for this, you're just gonna have to trust me because you know, well, you don't have to trust me because you can go look if you want. The way that God was fundamentally, and this is the only Bible scripture. There are literally hundreds upon hundreds that have mouth or lion in them. But only one has lion and mouth in it. And it is from this Deuteronomy, and it refers to this character named God, who is the progenitor of the tribe of God. And very interestingly enough, there's another God in the Bible, and he is an advisor to King David, who is called the Lion of Judah, right? So you have the lion connection there again. But this this character of God, essentially then being the progenitor of this missing tribe. Now, it's interesting. So if you look at the tribes of Israel as they are mapped according to the official, you can actually find the tribes of Israel map, and you'll see how they all were encamped in the area of Israel. Each of them had their own little province. Well, guess what? Where is God sitting? Right there in the same place to the southeast of the exterior border of Israel. Right there in what would be a position of a mouth in terms of, say, you know, the way we've extrapolated thus far, both in terms of Mozambique leading into Zimbabwe, on the African head, and then obviously on Charleston and its position on the coast of the United States. The tribe of God, this attaching tribe, seems to go towards the mouth area. It's almost as if it's some kind of, and again, this goes into this whole kind of circumcision concept and of how the teeth are used to bite off the mouth. So we have lion, we have Rhodes, we have Cecil Rhodes, we have Cecil 33, we have the diamond connection by way of Rhodes, and of course, another thing that I wanted to point out is that in prayer with the Tefilin attached, this is, according to the Jewish or the Hebraic tradition, the way in which one can actually be officially correctly attached to the mind of God. Are you following me?
No.
Well, sure, because that's what they do. They put, in their belief system, they wear this thing, this cube on their head, with the letter Shin on it. And it is only in doing that, and there's another thing where they strap something around their arm. I write about the strap around the arm in my article, Suicide Switch, as well. So they strap one around their arm, they strap one on their head. But the one on their head, that's the one that allows their mind to connect with God. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. In their belief system, that's the way their mind finally can properly process the information of God. It has to be processed. Yeah, exactly. And through this cube. Well, check this out. So we have the Shin on there, Shin meaning tooth and all this other stuff. Well, and then we have diamonds and diamonds in teeth and whatever. Well, and I realize this may be pushing it, but in terms of a pun, I found it interesting because the continent on Earth that is mined is Africa. Africa is the mining. It is where things are mined. And of course, that's M-I-N-E-D, but it provides a homophone for the word mind itself, right? And of course, the mind, the mind of God is supposedly flooded with light. It's so bright. So in other words, it is this sheen, it is the light of sheen that is unobstructed, shining through this so-called diamond tooth, Cecil 33, the whole damn thing. So, you know, I mean, that's just kind of what fascinates me about it. And all this stuff literally just came to me sitting listening to your podcast or to your YouTube video the other day, and I felt like I wanted to share it with you. So that's about, you know, I think that pretty much. I think the only I didn't do any real research on this, but the one thing that I did discover after we decided we would talk was the whole how Cecil actually means roof, right? Means the roof. It's a French or a Latin contraction for the roof or the ceiling, and that just blew me away. So, you know, that's what I got.
It certainly unlocks a lot of mysteries that were floating around in my head ever since I heard about Cecil the lion, and it beautifully just ties it into everything else that's going on, because it had become very apparent to me after the month of June that something, a real hardcore program was in place.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. It was like turning on a dime. There's this, you know, over here there's trucker culture. And there's trucker music, and there's this song called "Give Me 40 Acres and I'll Turn This Rig Around." And I mean, it's like this is literally how outrageous this has been. It's like society, and nobody is acting like anything has happened at all. We have literally, it seems, gone through a looking glass. There's this a neo-reactionary guy who I listen to. He's also an Irishman. He's got a channel called Millennial Woes. I don't know if you...
No, he's not Irish. He's Scottish, and even then he's his Scottishness.
Yes, he is Scottish. No, you're right. I just made a mistake there. I know the difference between a Scottish accent and an Irish one. But
no worries.
Yeah, I just forgot. And I do love the English language, so I'm a huge fan of it in general. But he was talking about, he has this video called 27 days in June, I think. Or is it 27 days in July? No, it's 27 days in June. Where he goes, I cannot fucking believe how fast this is happening. And he's absolutely right. I mean, one after, it's almost like dominoes falling, you know? And everyone's standing around like nothing is happening at all, which makes me wonder, is anything happening? I mean, you know, why is it? You would think, Mr. Silverpill, you would think that considering the confluence of events from, well, let's start really at the beginning of, you know, let's start with the Arab Spring thing, beginning around with the Arab Spring, which of course springs out of the top of the head of Africa as well. And following through, you know, the Benghazi scandal, and then that insane fucking murderous cover-up, and Snowden and Assange, and following through all of that other stuff, and then having it culminate in Rachel Dolezal and these, I mean, you know, something I like, and this is something that I find really a little bit reassuring, is like there aren't very many white people who are talking about this stuff with any sanity, but there are some black people who are, and and I think it's because they actually have they got their community, right? They have some traditional values still left, and so they feel maybe it's safe for them to talk about how insane this all is, right? But they're even, you know, in spite of all this obvious propaganda, this Black Lives Matter and this fake fucking funeral By the way, are you familiar with the term pickaninny?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, Reverend Pickaninny, right? Right. His face, his face is all painted black. he doesn't even look like a human being. He looks more like a Pickaninny doll. Their faces were literally jet black. Mm-hmm. These little dolls that were given out at fairs back in the days when it was still okay, I guess, to be to represent races at all in some. But whatever. So you have Reverend, and that's his name, Pinckney, right? Pinckney, Reverend Pinckney. It's all right there that this thing is so fucked up, and yet everybody's just walking around like nothing is happening. Can't they feel? And like for me, I live in Calgary, Alberta, and Calgary or Edmonton, which is the city where I grew up, is the center of men's rights activism in the world, right? So that's kind of interesting too, like all this fucking weirdness going on up there, and slut walks, and what is going on? So we do understand each other in that respect. It's just like, how can this be? But more than how can it be? Why is it's like, a certain number of people would be consigned to fiddling on the decks of the Titanic, right? They would just accept it as their job. Look, we're paid musicians. This ship's going down, so let's just sit here and try to soothe these fuckers because they're scared out of their minds. But it seems to me like there's a lot of active fiddling going on by almost everybody. It's like, because the implication of fiddling isn't just that the ship is sinking, but it's that it's sinking and you've decided not to do anything about it. You're not just listening to the fiddlers anymore while you're trying to figure out how you might get out of this conundrum. You've now joined them, and it seems to me that in terms of the massive social voice right now, it's just a bunch of fiddling, people just fiddling, and nobody talking about what's real in any, except for, there are these few pockets, right?
Yeah.
Of people, so, and I don't know what to make of that, really. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of, self-isolate in general. But whatever. Yeah, that's another story. Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Everyone has become a politician.
Yes, a politician, a blind politician, right? Like it's almost all you have to do now is you have the rhetoric, right?
Yeah.
You've got your your system. It's like people are more passionate about whether iMacs are better than PCs than they are about the fact that a massive amount of our media attention and a massive amount of our social attention is being fixed on a fraction of a percent of people who claim that the only way they can go on living is to have their penises cut off. Do you see what I mean? It's like the fact that something like, say, a transgender person could happen is not that interesting. It could even be acceptable, well, that's what they want to do. Sure, go ahead. I'm sure there's somebody out there who'll do it. Get I definitely do some comparison shopping before you go in there. But otherwise, whatever. But it's the idea that we're all supposed to accept it as a spiritual evolution of humanity in some way. That is fucking insane. It is insane. And I guess, that's something I can share with you, is that we at least will see that we're living in a world that is utterly insane in a way that's kind of scary. So,
Can I interrupt this whole process for a little while? I just drank 2 energy drinks while sitting here, and I need to relieve my bladder.
Well, sure. I mean, we can call it a conversation if you want.
If you want to end it now, or
I mean,
mind, if we still have things to say to each other, I find you to be a gold mine of.
I would love to talk to you about anything at any time in the future, and if you want to record or share anything that we talk about in any degree, I feel relatively comfortable that however you use it or edit it, you'll represent it fairly. So and I mean, I'd love to talk to you again. And in the meantime, I'll be watching your videos, and I might even be inspired to actually do something for the first time in a very long time. maybe write an article about this whole affair and try to, bring it all together. Because I still have people out there who wait for the very next thing that I'm going to do, like maniacs. So, and this is kind of interesting. So that would be a first. But in the meantime, yeah, I'll be watching out for you. I might drop a comment on a video, and if you ever want to talk about anything, or if you want my opinion on anything, just let me know. And and the next time we do this, we can get hammered.
Sounds good.
All right. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, it's been great.
All right, bye-bye. My best to you and yours.
And to you, sir. What an interesting journey that has been. Good God. I need to go take a piss.